Welcome to Louisiana Considered on a Wednesday. I'm Adam Voss. Later on the show, we'll talk with festival producer Shane Finkelstein about the first ever food fight taking place tomorrow in New Orleans. We also hear how the festival benefits the Please Foundation, an organization that helps at-risk youth get high-quality education and a move on to college. But first, the rise in oil prices in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been quite obvious to American consumers. Gas prices here have peaked at a level very unfamiliar to Louisiana motorists, and those prices are still elevated. As Europe's oil and gas supply from Russia is in question, why doesn't U.S. oil and gas just increase production and capitalize on it? To answer that question for us and to speak with us about the Louisiana industry's response to the Russian pinch on oil and gas, we have Mike Moncla, president of the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. Welcome to Louisiana Considered.
Thank you very much for having me today.
First of all, the reason fuel prices are up is because of that limit on the Russian oil and gas supply as a result of economic measures the West is taking in retaliation to Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, and that has an effect on the world oil market. First of all, can you just give us the basics on why oil prices here and globally are responding to those restrictions on the gas supply in Europe?
Well, I think there's a lot to unwind right there. I mean, you've got the price of oil has gone up maybe 10, 15% since Russia invaded Ukraine. So, we already had prices at $90 plus before Russia invaded Ukraine. So there was a lot of other reasons that the price of oil went up before Russia ever did that.
So what has been the national oil industry response to that pinch on Russian oil and gas? Why isn't America just pumping more oil out of the ground?
Well, for most people that aren't in the oil industry, it's very hard to understand the way it works. There's two parts of the oil and gas industry, and you've got oil companies that own wells, and you've got drilling rig companies and workover rig companies that own rigs that either drill new wells or work on existing wells to get them back flowing. And over the last 7 years, we went through a terrible downturn. There was over 1,000 bankruptcies. Then you've got a president that comes in and they're urging investment away from all fossil fuels to all the financial institutions. So having gone through what we've all gone through on the service side, equipment has been stacked for 7 years. It's rusted out. Mm-hmm. The people have gone. They've gone into other industries. I mean, every one of the workover rig big boys, the majors in the workover rig space went bankrupt in the last 5 to 7 years. So, I mean, it is very difficult for companies in the service side to, A, go to a bank and get lending, and two, do they even want to get lending? Because if this thing goes the other way in 6 months or a year and oil goes back to 40, then you got more debt on your books that you can't pay for. So it's a lot more to it than the general public thinks just turn a switch on.
And as you mentioned, there are a lot of uncertainties that would make this an unattractive time to invest a lot into more drilling. We don't know, for instance, how quickly the war will end. We don't know how quickly diplomatic responses might change. And then in the long term, we don't know whether political interests will favor renewables or diminish the demand for oil in the future. Those all sound like factors that make oil on a national level not interested in investing a whole lot, even though there's a demand in Europe.
Right. New rigs are being built, but not that often, And if you look at what has happened in the last year, though, 1 year ago, there was 450 rigs working in the United States. Today, there's 698. So the industry has stepped up. They have put up 250 more rigs to try to get new oil drilled to the marketplace. But, you look at the IEA, International Agency on Energy, and they think that oil and natural gas are currently 54% of energy usage in the world. And in the year 2040, they have it going from 54 to 45%. So that seems like, that 9%, that's a pretty big, drop down for us. But if you read the fine print, the population of the world goes from 7.5 billion to 10 billion. So if you have 25% more energy needs in the world, and natural gas and oil only drops 9%, in the year 2040, we're going to need more fossil fuel energy than today.
We're speaking with Mike Moncla, president of the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. You mentioned that there has actually been a little bit of an upturn in oil production and the opening of new wells. How do you think Louisiana's oil industry response will follow that of national trends, or do we diverge at all? How does this affect Louisiana?
Well, there's three segments of oil and gas in Louisiana. You've got land, you've got inland waters, and you've got offshore. So the inland waters portion, that's the portion that the state would get the most out of because it was state leased land. So state is the royalty owner, and that industry has completely been demolished by coastal erosion lawsuits. The offshore market, while there is production there, new leases will not be given out under this administration, or at least it seems that way so far. And then you got the land piece. And so on land, we've got a shale play in North Louisiana, the Haynesville Shale. It's one of the diamonds of the United States. I mean, it is one of the best natural gas plays due to the proximity to Lake Charles, Cameron area where the LNG plants are. We're able to get natural gas from the Haynesville to these LNG plants, and we are saving the day in Europe. I mean, literally, Shreveport area, Louisiana is providing energy for Europe during these difficult times. South Louisiana, we really don't have a shale play. Activity has picked up. We're running about 10 rigs in South Louisiana, mostly drilling for oil, whereas in the Haynesville, we've got about 40 rigs drilling in North Louisiana for natural gas.
Is Louisiana poised to benefit from an increase in oil and gas production?
Yeah, I think Louisiana is definitely, we'll definitely increase production this year. We're drilling more wells than we did last year, and we're doing a lot more workovers to existing wells than we did last year. So we should have an increase on the oil side. On the natural gas side, yeah, I mean, we've gone from 20-something rigs running in the Haynesville last year to 40. So we're definitely doing our part to increase production.
And I saw some news recently about the ports here in Louisiana getting approved to export more natural gas. How is Louisiana's oil industry looking on that? Yeah,
sure. I mean, anytime, if we're going to increase the amount of LNG that we can send out, then more of our natural gas will go to those facilities to fill those tanks to go to Europe. So, yeah, absolutely, it'll help.
Mike Moncla, president of the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association, thanks for being on Louisiana Considered today.